Hello everybody, welcome to this week's update video. My name is Martin and I'm an Inkscape developer and I develop features and fixes for everyday Inkscape users. Thank you for joining me in this video where I basically need to update you on all of the things that have been going on, both the work that I've been doing, thanks to your sponsorship of my time, and also some of the things going on in the wider Inkscape project. As you saw from the last video that I released, the Inkscape project went to Nuremberg for an Inkscape summit, and there was a lot of things that happened, so we actually have a lot of things to get through this week. I do want to give space to thanking everybody for continuing your sponsorship of my time. It's really important to me that the time that I spend on Inkscape isn't funded by Google, it isn't funded by Microsoft, it isn't funded by some big oligarch. It's actually direct funding from users, because ultimately I want users to be able to direct and say what it is they want Inkscape to be, right? I want you guys to be in the driving seat. And unfortunately, the way that we do that in the society that we have is you have to pay for the free software that you use. And I'm so proud of all of the sponsors that recognize their role in contributing to Inkscape and do so month after month. So thank you so much. Okay, let's get into the details. We're going to just talk about some of the things and the people that are involved in the conversations. What happened at the summit was a lot of work, but also a lot of discussions, very important discussions about making sure that all of the volunteers and all of the contributors are all in sync with each other. Mark wanted to talk about the future of live path effects. This is important because we need to improve the stability of live path effects. There's a lot of stuff to do with how we're going to represent it in the XML. A lot of stuff about how we're going to basically make sure that it's testable, so that going forwards it's maintainable, which is a critical problem that we've had in Inkscape. We have a UX quality initiative by Henrik. He's basically making sure that he's basically starting the process of doing the UX research necessary to make Inkscape's UX actually more consistent with how users need it to work. A lot of this is about data, a lot of it is going to be about design, and a lot of it is going to be engaging with the developer team to figure out what the next steps need to be in order to improve the design of Inkscape. I know there's a lot of designers in my community here on YouTube. If you're interested in being a part of that discussion, you should get involved. This is not a highly technical discussion. A lot of it is going to be about basically gathering data and discussing some of the priorities. I am working on the roadmap working group. This is an important aspect of Inkscape, which, so if you think about a project like Blender, the roadmap is set by Ton Rosenfeld, and he's a very good leader in terms of defining what it is that Blender should be and defining the direction for which the whole project should pull in, right? He synchronizes essentially the way in which volunteers or paid developers all pull in the same direction. And so what we want to do is have that kind of facility in Inkscape, but our leadership is not the same, right? We don't have a single almighty leader. We have an eclectic bunch of both volunteers and people like myself that are paid by the community, and we don't have a single person to call upon to set the roadmap. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a roadmap working group. This is where we build a consensus around what it is that Inkscape wants to be. This is where we build up what developers should be working towards, and hopefully give advice on what volunteers might choose to work on. Now, this is important because if you're a volunteer, a project roadmap or even project leadership cannot tell you what to work on, right? Your labor is your own. But if you want to choose to pull in the same direction, that's what this roadmap working group is there for. It also allows us to decide on what to spend Inkscape's donations on. So when you donate directly to the Inkscape project instead of paying for somebody like myself, a decision has to be made about what the priorities are and where that money gets spent. This roadmap group will hopefully be able to set that direction as well, allowing us to actually spend money on features, not just as we have done so far on infrastructure and on bug fixing, but actually on making new things. That will be important, I think. If we want to grow the amount of money that we want to hopefully gain through donations, we're going to have to show that we're spending it on improving Inkscape, not just maintaining it. The quality assurance work by Raphael Basically, we have a huge gap in the amount of testing and testing infrastructure that we have in Inkscape's codebase. This is built up over many, many years of well-meaning volunteers adding functionality or fixing issues, but not adding test cases that can actually prove that those fixes will continue to work going forwards. This has been a many-year process, but Raphael wants to make it a formal process where the project agrees that this is going to be the policies in place. Vibe have met with the Critter guest Tyre, I think that's how you pronounce that name, apologies, about releasing Inkscape on Steam. We're aware that the Critter project earns quite a bit of money from selling Critter on Steam, and that's an important revenue stream for them. Going back to our spending money on the roadmap, we're trying to tap into more revenue streams so that we can actually get more people to pay for Inkscape, because while we are a free software project, we do believe that paying for free software is an important aspect of user contribution and user involvement into making free software free, right? We have a developer documentation project by Max. A lot of this is about cleaning up our developer documentation. This is so that if you're a new volunteer who's a programmer who can get into the project, you need to be able to find the right documentation in the expected places. And just like a lot of other Inkscape, we're old. We have a lot of stuff spread out in a lot of different places. Some of it is so old that it just needs to be deleted. So partially what Max was doing is basically building the consensus for like, yes, this action needs to be taken, and Max is the one to take it, which can be very useful for this kind of meeting, is basically getting the authority to be able to act. And also about deleting things, right? Getting the authority to delete things that other people have made can be scary, and getting the project together at a summit to be able to make those decisions can be very, very useful. And finally, I wanted to talk about the finishing up work for the 1.5 release. We have a lot of issues in 1.5, like a lot of issues. And a lot of them have been created by the upgrade to GTK4. There are upstream issues that we have actually had some GTK developers fix. Big thanks to them for engaging with us on our downstream issues, and also on a lot of issues, the way we use events and signaling, various other bits and problems. We are all going to try and fix those problems, but we also need to be aware of the fact that we might actually have to pay somebody to work on GTK directly, especially when it comes to Mac OS, especially when it comes to Windows. We need to put our money where our mouth is and basically make sure that our project can be deployed on Windows and Mac successfully, and hopefully without speed problems. Okay, so that's all of the stuff that we talked about at the summit. If you're interested in any of those topics, get in touch, because there are still ongoing discussions about how we're organizing Inkscape, and your voice can be useful to that. Okay, so what have I actually been materially working on? I've been refactoring the cursors most recently. So basically, Inkscape has some weird issues when it comes to the scaling of cursors, causing the actual point that you click on to become disassociated with the graphic that's shown when you click on it. Because we have so many different cursors, we actually have these all in SVG files, and there's a hotspot that basically tells the program where that center point is that you actually click on or drag from. And this point wasn't editable. And so what I've done is I've created the functionality so that a designer who is designing a cursor for Inkscape, or maybe even for some other tools, if this is a good way of doing this, can just go in, use the Pages tool. I've added a new node that you can just move around. The node is only visible if these coordinates are set already. And then you can actually drag that point to the correct place in your graphic. Then I fixed all of the code that actually does all the scaling, so that all of those scaling issues also get fixed. And so we have a harmonious progress from the designer who will be doing the dash icon theme, for example, where some of those cursors need to be adjusted only slightly. The designer wasn't aware that the hotspot was there, so those things became disassociated. And obviously they weren't editable before, that's why that needed to be fixed. And also going forwards with the scaling, so that if you have poor eyesight, you need your cursors to be bigger, the hotspot will be in the correct place because it will be scaled correctly with the graphic. I also fixed some issues with the units. I wanted to make the data that's used to place all of the ruler, what do they call them, ticks. I wanted that data to not be in the code. I wanted that to be in the units.xml file. So in 1.5, you should be able to customize the rulers more. There may need to be some more refactoring to make that more consistent, but we'll see. I want to make the feet and meters ruler strokes to be better, and I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm definitely progressing there with the refactoring. I've continued work on colors. I've been investigating how the deep structure in the SVG for rendering will interact with the default color space selector, making sure that you can actually set this CSS property in the SVG root, that this can be an ICC profile. It doesn't have to be linear RGB or sRGB. I think those distinctions are too limited. We need to be able to expand to all CMYK and various other models. I think that it's going to be important for Inkscape to be able to render in those models no matter what it is, and we will figure out a way of doing it. Even if it's slow, even if it's just something you can just render once and then you go back to sRGB to do editing, we'll figure it out. And the other part of the color stuff is refactoring of some old structures, really old stuff. We're basically using XML nodes to store CSS attributes in order to take advantage of some of the XML functions for sorting and things. This means that you have to create a whole XML document to store all of these CSS attributes. This isn't good. This isn't understandable to a new developer that comes along. It's archaic. It's all C-based functions, even though we're a C++ program. So that all needs to be cleaned up. It's hard though, because without the testing, you don't know if something you change is going to break everything. So I'm going to put that in B tier in terms of like whether that's likely to be completed. I put in a fix for extensions so that if an extension doesn't have a requirement, a dependency is missing, when you click on it, it'll now pop up a warning and say that you're missing this program. Say if it's the critter conversion to CRA files, it'll say you need critter installed in order to be able to do that. Before it was just silently failing. That wasn't good enough. So I fixed a lot of things. There was some refactoring necessary because there was old code once again that was saving these errors but not actually expressing them to the users, and some of the code had actually just failed and it just wasn't being used anymore. So it wasn't even doing the thing that it was supposed to do anyway. So that's all been fixed and cleaned up. Very happy with that. I created a set of tests and some policies around toolbars. So all of the little buttons and things in Inkscape, they can all have different properties in terms of like whether they'll take focus or whether you can click on them in certain ways and things. All of those should be consistent. And the problem is if you have lots and lots of volunteers who are slowly making Inkscape's user experience better, they're not going to know what those policies are, and they're going to make mistakes. So what I've done is I've created a test which says, hey, if you're making a toolbar, it has to be this. And the test will fail if your toolbar doesn't follow this policy. Now, if it turns out that we need a different policy, that can be changed in the test. But so long as whatever we choose, it's consistent, right? That's what's important, is that all of the buttons, all of the entry boxes, all of the drop downs, everything works the same no matter which toolbar you're working from and how many different volunteers have worked on making that particular piece of the UX. So part of our consistency, part of our testing, trying to make the UX of Inkscape better through policy. There was 2 PDF related issues. My God, you can see how much work that I have to catch you up on. I'm so sorry there's not been more of these videos, but we'll get through it. Don't worry. 2 PDF related issues. There was images that are too big, weren't being exported because they were out of memory for the interface that was being used. I had to use a different interface and actually refactor a bunch of stuff, fix that stuff up. Now you can export images of any size to your PDF file. Your PDF will be big, but at least it'll work. And the other one was OTF fonts. This was work done by Juicy. We weren't exporting OTF font text because it wasn't supported by Cappy PDF. Juicy has added that support to Cappy PDF, and while it's not available in current builds, as soon as we upgrade to the next version of Cappy PDF, that OTF file support will be there. We also made sure that we were supporting a bunch of different OTF files so that we didn't just test against one, because there's a bunch of different tables and things that you have to be able to support. And it looks like he's supported them all so far, as we know, which is great. Thank you, Jesse, for doing that work for us. A part of the Bug Accelerator program continues on. Tav and I and KRIR have fixed a bunch of things. Lots of crashes, transformations, bad page sizing, default templates that had Windows coordinates in them, null checking for strings, a bug with recursively unlocking when you right click on it. Basically it's the unlock of the thing under the cursor. Lots of shape inside checking for making sure that the things don't crash when the IDs change. Stuff like that. A small fix to the welcome screen to recenter it on Wayland. It's been brought back to 1.4.3. There's been a whole bunch of backporting, basically making sure that fixes that went into 1.5 that are applicable to 1.4 get backported so that 1.4.3 will actually have a lot of these fixes in it. You won't have to wait quite so long to get them. That's important to us because we think 1.5 is going to be particularly unstable, and so 1.4 is going to be the thing for a little while, and so we need to make sure that these fixes are getting to people as soon as possible. I worked on standardizing the input preferences. So PDF input as an extension has its own custom user interface, and along with this user interface, it actually had its own custom preferences as well. This was definitely a problem because it meant that these preferences weren't being saved in the same way that other extensions are. And what I basically had to do is figure out a way of making custom user interfaces for extensions work with standard normal preferences, right? So it's about making sure that even if you are customizing one part of it, you don't end up customizing the data part of it, because you want consistency, right? And the less weird things that you have from somebody that contributed something many years ago, the easier it is to maintain consistency and have functionality that's the same across the board. So you want all of the options that you select in the PDF input to be saved, so that the next time you import a PDF file, those same options will be available, and you hopefully won't have to keep on clicking the same options over and over again. And hopefully it means that if anybody ever does a custom user interface in the future, they will have a good example of how to do preferences along with that. Okay, so that's stuff that I've been going on with. It's a lot, I know. Let's talk about some of the other stuff that has been going on in Inkscape quickly. Raphael has been working on his refactoring and test writing. It's worth pointing that out again. PBS has been working on a lot of cleanups, but most importantly, he's been working on the split path and the shape builder detection code. This is basically when you have a bunch of shapes and it should detect where the holes are correctly. There were definitely some issues. More of that has been fixed. Adam has been great at testing those. Mike has been fixing various UX and UI issues, including the sizing and the bouncing back of dialogues, so the minimum size required for those side dialogues. Tav has been working on a bunch of text calculations, especially for right to left text, so that if you set the alignment to right or left, it correctly sets the coordinates for that if you are using Arabic or Hebrew. Mark, Rene, and Max have been working on the build infrastructure and documentation, and making sure that all the developers, especially new developers, have a easier time getting into the project. It's an ongoing project, but it's worth pointing out their continuous efforts. And Kiri has been working on fixing a lot of things, and when Kyle, is that? I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry, has been working on a lot of small bug fixes as well. So I want to give credit to them. Basically, there's a lot of activity going on in Inkscape, but a lot of this stuff isn't being seen because it's going into 1.5 and it won't be seen for a while yet, as well as a lot of stuff in Inkscape's general organization, its leadership, its policies and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff going on with the website. I need to build a proposal for the website so that we can have the Software Freedom Conservancy help us maintain our Django-based website. So lots of stuff going on. But that's it for this video. Any longer, and I'm sure YouTube would complain. Thank you very much for watching this. Please comment below, especially if you have ideas or issues. I'm always interested in hearing from you. Post any interesting Inkscape videos that you have seen, and yeah, maybe have a go at this month's challenge. The Vectors team operates a artist challenge every month. I believe this month's is to create fish. If you can draw fish using Inkscape, post your artwork. I would love to see it. And until next time, thank you very much for watching.